Why I don't like the live action Avatar series. This shirt is wrinkly as all hell. I haven't worn this shirt in forever, but we're gonna deal with it. You know, I had to wear this for this special occasion though, because Netflix's live action adaptation of Avatar The Last Airbender has pretty much just released. And last night I took the opportunity to watch the very first episode of this new series. Unfortunately, the first episode didn't really give me a good impression. But there were some really cool aspects about it, so let me go over what's good about this first episode. The opening sequence is amazing. I love when live action adaptations of previously animated products give a bit of context to what happened just before the series got its start. In this version, you see how the Earthbenders got basically tricked by the Fire Nation into thinking that they were being invaded when in reality they were going after the air nomads. And I thought that was so cool. The earthbending actor in particular, who's running away with the battle plans, like they're going to invade our nation, we need to go. And his facial acting is really good in this series. And another positive I'll say is the bending. So far, it's not bad. I like the look of the earthbending especially. And the firebending is also very, very good. Another positive that they kind of just nailed in this version, which I didn't expect them to because I expected this character to be the worst. They nailed Zuko in this first episode. They nailed him as a character. Like, I totally believe this dude is 100% just obsessed with the Avatar, just obsessed with getting his hands on him and bringing him back to the Fire Nation in order to restore his honor and glory. The actor who plays him sells it very well. The only thing I don't like about Zuko is the face scar. I really think they could have done more with that and they could have made it more depthful. But regardless, I like Zuko in this version. He's my favorite character of the show so far. And the final positive I have about this first episode is the scenery. It's very pretty to look at. And a lot of the wide shots do a damn good job at showcasing the vastness of this world. But even, like, world building aside, it's a very pretty show to look at. And I could see a lot of the stills from it being used as, like, desktop wallpapers and stuff like that. It's gorgeous. That's all I can say. And now let's talk about more of the negatives of this first episode. And let me bring this up real quick, because everyone's talked this point to death. There's no reason to dwell on it. So let me just get this out of the way. Aang flying makes no sense. It's completely pointless. And it really is kind of a detriment to the story, because you're wondering, if Aang can fly and he's just a regular airbender, why don't all the airbenders just fly away when the Fire Nation attacks? It's ridiculous, I know. But on that topic, like I said before, I took the opportunity to rewatch the first 3 episodes of the original Avatar, and I was paying attention to see if Aang did fly in those first 3 episodes. He doesn't really. He sneezes and then sends himself 10 feet up in the air, and then he uses himself to boost his own jumping, like when he hops on top Appa's back. But that's it. He doesn't really fly unless if it's with his glider. That's when he shows off his flying capabilities. But in the live action version, he could just fly without his glider, so that makes the glider 90% pointless. An easy fix for that would be in the first scene when Aang just flies around for no reason. If he simply just jumped down from the top of the building he's standing on and then uses airbending to reduce the impact of his fall. Like, he caused himself to float a little bit. If he did that, there would be no complaints. Some other negatives about this first episode are the acting and the dialogue, and I'll whiz by these real quick. The dialogue is ridiculous. It makes the kids try to sound like they're adults, but it fails miserably. It's exactly what I criticize Percy Jackson over as well. The kids don't sound like kids. They don't sound like their age, you know? It sounds like the writers don't know what 12-year-olds sound like or don't have kids of their own. So they wrote the kids to sound like adults, and they try to write the adults to also sound like adults, but somehow neither of it works. I don't know. And the kid who plays Aang, bless his heart, he's probably a wonderful kid in real life. He was 12 when they made this. I don't blame him for this, but his acting is very stiff. And I blame the directors for this wholeheartedly, because directing a kid should not be difficult. It isn't difficult, because I saw a younger kid in Godzilla -1 act her ass off. She was younger than Aang, and she could cry on the spot and fucking nailed every scene she was in. I got concerned, actually, for how well she did it. But a lot of the acting, and not just Aang, it's everyone in this show, a lot of the acting feels very, very stiff and not at all convincing. I'm not convinced, I'm not gripped into the show by these guys acting. The opening scene gripped me. Nothing else did, though. And this negative that I'm going to bring up now has been a hot topic of debate ever since the show was announced. Sokka's sexism. The fact that this was removed is so fucking stupid that it completely ruins the entire opening for me. I saw people on TikTok constantly talk on whether this was a good thing or not. Removing Sokka's sexism, ultimately, it's not a good thing. And I don't get how people think it is, because Sokka learns in the first few episodes not to be sexist. And that's a good message to teach to kids. Why remove it? Also, do people just forget that the entire reason that Katara and Sokka find Aang in the first place is because Sokka's sexist comment? Sokka makes a sexist comment about Katara and says, this is why I don't bring girls fishing. They just ruin everything. And then Katara gets pissed. Katara rages. And then behind her, she's causing the water to like rumble and shit. And then she breaks an ice sculpture, and that's what reveals Aang. This would not have happened if Sokka wasn't sexist. You know, then they have to rewrite the entire beginning of the story to just say, oh, they just found him. Removes almost all of his flaws. And it's ridiculous to me that people think this is a good idea. That actually leads directly into two other negatives about this show. First off, this scene, which is just fucking terrible, but also the removal of little character moments that make these characters more than just cardboard cutouts. For example, if I could refer back to the original, this moment has little bits of character all over it. Sokka's cracking jokes while being protective of Katara. Katara's actively caring of Aang. Aang wakes up and immediately asks Katara out on a date. These are little character moments that help build these characters up to be so likable throughout the series. Without this, it's stupid. It's boring. Not only that, Aang immediately exemplifies a childlike sense of wonder that these two have really never gotten the chance to experience. You will immediately know this as soon as you see him. However, in the remake, Sokka's not cracking any jokes. He's not protecting Katara at all. He doesn't even have his fucking spear. Katara's not caring about Aang at all. Aang doesn't say anything. He gets up and then he passes out. These guys don't ride back to the village on Appa. It's these little bits of character that are just completely ripped out of the story because character writing is stupid, apparently. Also, the penguin sledding scene, you know, the scene that was a really good moment for Katara because it showed that she's still a kid and didn't need to mature as much as she did in order to care for her village because Aang tells her that she's still a kid. Yeah, this scene is entirely removed from the live-action version, yet for some reason Katara still wants to have this childlike sense of wonder, even though Aang fucking doesn't in the live-action version. Sokka not believing that Appa can fly, then as soon as he triggers the words and Appa flies, he immediately gets excited and gets that childlike sense of wonder that he also had to abandon in order to protect his village. This scene, completely removed from the live-action version. They just know how to fly Appa somehow. Aang's second fight with Zuko, showcasing his more defensive style of airbending versus Zuko's offensive style of firebending. Again, completely removed in the live-action version for some reason. Katara accidentally failing a waterbending technique and freezing Sokka, and instead of trying to do a new one, she does the same one again but turned around. This little moment, removed from the live-action version. There's a reason why this show is talked about so frequently and so in-depth, despite being released so long ago. It's little moments like that that make these characters so unbelievably likable for generations to come. The live-action version has none of that, so you don't give a shit. Like I said before, the things added in the beginning are awesome, but the moment that Katara and Sokka find Aang onward is a true disrespect to the fan base of Avatar: The Last Airbender. And it makes me wonder who the target audience is for this and why was it made. But if I had to rank this first episode of Avatar: The Last Airbender on a scale from 1 to 10, I'd have to rank it a 4. It's not terrible. It's not outright awful. It's not really all that offensive either. But I wouldn't go as far as to say that it's great. I wouldn't even go really as far as to say that it's good, though. It's just less than middle of the road for me. I can see some people enjoying this and having a good time with it, but for me, it fell flat on its face. And overall, that's pretty much